Today we are going to take a look into the rest of our topics from tables and columns, and we'll also see a couple of interesting tables that are listed here, and few more information related to tables and columns. So, like in Oracle, we have a table of tables, right? The tab table. So here in ServiceNow, the table of tables is sys_db_object. Okay, so if you go into this table sys_db_objects, and if you try to see what it contains, it will show you all the tables contained within the system, within the ServiceNow table. You see here, so I just did sysdbobjects.list, and I can see that 3173 tables are there, and this is the list of all the tables coming in here. Get it?
Yep. Rahul, does this ServiceNow provides a SQL editor where we can run the SQL query just a one screen?
You don't see there is no SQL query concept here in ServiceNow, right? To use SQL-like queries, you have to use glide records. Glide records are the database handling concept. The classes which handle databases does all the CRUD operation for you. So if you have to, read table or update table or delete records from the table, you have to use the glide records. There is no concept of having SQL queries in place, right?
Okay.
So that is also quite interesting. It's the same, SQL-like concept, but in a different way. You have this glide class available, glide record class, and using that glide record class, you will be accessing the database. Okay, we'll look into it. All right, so this was a sysdb object. Another table that I am talking about is sys_dictionary that contains additional details of each tables and definition for each column on each table. So for example, see this .NET application table, you have a table into it, right? Now this table must contain some columns, some attributes to those columns, etc. So all these information that is related to this particular table, you can find that under sys_dictionary.list. So .list is to populate the table itself. And now you can see for all the tables that I had there, I had certain records in form of dictionary entries. For example, if I go and find out incident table, within this dictionary entry table, I'll see multiple records coming in for the incident table. So you see here, this is the incident table record, and for all columns that I have into the incident table, I have individual records here that contains the type information, the reference information if any default value if set, and all other properties that are set to the columns, right? So dictionary entries or sys dictionary table will contain additional information about the table itself and contains information for each of the columns that you have within a table. Right?
Yep.
Another table that we may talk about is sys_documentation. That contains sys_documentation contains human readable labels and language information. So sys_documentation. Best. So if you go in here in sys_documentation, it contains field labels, and you will ask what these field labels are. So if you go to incident table, I'm opening incident table for example, one record. Now you see these labels: number, caller, watch list, short description, opened, right? Now these field label information, these field label information are stored into the sys documentation table. Now you would argue Why not sys dictionary table? Of course, this is stored into sys dictionary table, but let's assume that there is a case where this incident form is being used by 5 customers of yours, right? Your 5 customers, 5 different organizations are using this incident form, and each of these customers have, they call this number field by a different name. For example, customer 1 calls it as incident number, customer 2 calls it as, let's say, trouble number, customer 3 calls it as, let's say, problematic number or something, right? So same field, but you have to store it as a different name within, for them, so that they see a much customized form for themselves and understand the form according to their business cases and according to what they are used to, right? So if in that case you have to store the label names according to different customers and according to roles and different views that you have created, you want to show that to the customers, different customers, the information will get stored into the sys documentation table, right? We'll somehow try to find out an example for you on sys documentation and try to see what these, how you can mask this field value for one customer and show it as a different text to other customer. Okay. So sys documentation is another table that that contains information for different columns and field labels. All right. Now we have already talked about to retrieve the records from the table. What you do is you do in the application navigator, you do table name and then you do dot list, right? So this is just a shortcut you must remember, because this will be useful for you to look into table name dot list. Now as an administrator, you can create database indexes for table, right? If we go into tables and columns, I'm going to sample table that I created yesterday, and then here when I scroll down, I get this section for index creator, right? So it's a simple database index concept. As you create in other databases, you can create table indexes here as well. So you have to pick the table name, what table you want to create index on, and then you have to pick the columns on which you want to create the index. If you want to make it a unique index or something, tick it, and then you have to create index, right? So basic concept of indexing will ensure that your table traversal or table data access on that table is faster if you have those indexes created for the tables. Clear? All right, the next point that I have about to discuss is, by default, the system does not audit records from the system tables. To audit a system table, add it to the list of tables in the glide UI audit deleted tables property. So there is a property that you have to set in order that the table that you create is enabled for auditing, right? So that property is glide.ui. I'll show you that to you. So just a property that I'm discussing right now.
So you said this is for custom table, or this is for any other table also?
Any table. By default, the tables which are not enabled for auditing, you have to set this property so that this table can be enabled for auditing, right? By default, the system does not audit records from system tables, or from system table it does not do. To audit a system table, add it to the list of tables in the glide UI audit deleted tables property. When you do that, you can enable auditing on that table, right? So this is all related to the attribute. If this attribute is set, the table can be audited. If it is not set, it cannot be audited, right? And the audit table,
What do you mean by audited?
audited means, see, information, what you change on the tables, if the data is deleted by somebody, how do you retrieve that information, whether who did that, who, when it was
Mm-hmm.
done, where is that record, etc. So these kind of information can be retrieved if you have the audited property enabled on the table. If you allow it to
Okay,
be
so it
audited,
means.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can check
So it
basically
means
the
if.
data integrity, check whether the data, who worked on the data, when was this data changed, this kind of information, you can get it done by using this property.
Okay, so in other words, what it means is if there is any change happen on that table, that get recorded in the sys audit table.
Right. So if you go into sys audit table, let's go into sys audit table and so see the type of records we have there, sys audit list. So when you go into sys audit table, you will see different records for different tables. So I'm going to open this record, which is from CMDB CI service. If I open
Mm-hmm.
this is on
Mm-hmm.
the create date. When I hit on the created date, I get this UI, this information, and it tells me something about, see, the user who updated it is admin. So there is some update count which is 10. The new value that is set is 1.0. There was no old value associated to this field, right? The field
Mm-hmm.
name is version, table name is business service, and then there is the document key that is associated to it. It is this one. So these kind of information will be recorded into the audit table that gives you information about when any change was done to the table and who did it.
Okay, so it means for one change there is a one record in the sysadmin table for the
If
same
if if
table.
if
Okay,
if auditing is allowed on that table, that record will be
right.
here in sys audit table as well.
Okay. So
Okay,
one record for, like, I have a 10 columns change, so 10 records for the same table will be
right,
audited here.
exactly,
Okay.
right. Now you talked about deleted records yesterday. So
Right.
if I go into incident table, for example, and by mistake I delete this incident 39 somehow. Okay, you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah, I can see your screen.
Alright, so I am deleting incident 39, right? Confirming it. So this record is no more in this table. I now have 117 records in the incident table, but now I realize that I should not have deleted this record at all, right? So can I retrieve it? So yes, there is a module here in ServiceNow within system definition application, and that module is deleted records, right? And when you hover on the deleted records module, it says audit history of records deleted from a subset of tables allows for restoration of deleted records. So you have to open this one. When you open this one, I'm going to sort it on the basis of record deleted date. So when I click on this, I can see that there is one record that is coming from incident table. Display value is incident 39, right? And this was deleted at this time, all right?
Mm.
Now I want to undelete this. So let's open it first and see the record. I can open and this gives me this information. And the information of the incident will get stored in form of this XML payload here. It will open up and show. So this record is here. So all the information from the incident form is coming and stored into this payload XML, right? Now if you want to undelete it, you have this button here, undelete record. You click on it and it will be undeleted. So this is one way of undeleting it. Another option will be available here. You select this one, scroll down, and then you have this drop down of action on selected rows. You can use undelete record here, right? So two ways of doing the same thing: undelete record from here, or open the record and then undelete. Now when you undelete it, you go back to the incident form, and instead of incident table, instead of 117 records, now you have 118 records, with incident 39 coming back to the incident table, right? So yes, there is a provision of undeleting records. If you delete records by default, you can undelete the record and bring that back to the table. All right.
Yep.
I think it is similar to normal SQL deletion. Otherwise, it is like a truncate means is overall deletion will happen. Like that, Rahul?
Uh,
No?
yes, yes. Truncate. I don't think we have any option here that gives you a truncate functionality. Delete is possible. Truncate, I don't see. See, there is within tables and columns, you have an option that says delete all records, right? So if you select this table here and you go here and delete all records, it will ask for a confirmation and then delete all the records into it, right, from the table. But this undeleted functionality is to retrieve data from, the mistakes you commit by deleting it. So I don't really think that we have a truncate functionality, or maybe you can call this delete all records as a truncate functionality in here.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Kumaran?
Yeah, I understand.
Now yesterday we left a few things into the table UI here. Especially we left these related links. These related links talk about design form, layout form, etc. Now see, we created this table to store data, but then we also talked about that the table that we create will be tied to some UI to take inputs from the user or to show data to the user, right? So how do we create that UI? Right? There are several ways of creating that UI. One way of creating a UI on top of this table is to use this related link here. Right from here, you can use this link, design form. If you click on this design form, it will open up a form designer. And in this form designer, you can play with the columns that you have created into this table. When you go into this form designer, it will contain columns from the table, right? Some of the columns might appear on this area, this bigger area, which means that when you open this form, it will have these controls displayed on this form. Some of these fields are available here in the left section. So this means that these fields can be dragged and dropped here to be used on the form. So using this form designer, you can drag drop those components or the fields from here and then save the form, and then you can go back and see how you have designed the form. There are some other formatter sections available here, so you can use these formatters. So put some additional formatting, some labeling, etc. On the form, right? Some sections as well. For example, if you want to put this as, if I want to get user information here on the form, and then I want to put another section as, let's say, So I made two sections, and let's say I want to, very vaguely I want to pull these two fields here within this section. I don't want this activity formatter here. Right? So stuff like that. On the form, you put different sections, you put different fields that you have, you drag, drop, and then you can change the layout of it as well. For example, right now this is a two-column UI, two-column layout. If you want to change it to one-column layout, you can change that too. If you want to leave this section as two-column layout, you can leave that. If you want to make this as well as one-column layout, you can do that as well. And then you can save it. Now, when you bring each of these individual components here, you can tweak their property by using this settings button. When you hit this settings button, it will open up the properties window for that individual component or field, and then you can play with it. You can change the values of it from here as well. When you change it, these change will be reflected into the dictionary item of the table and for this column, right? Because if you change this max length for this column, it will be reflected back to the table where this record was created, and the information will be stored there. So very intuitive. You change it at one place and it will be reflected to the other area as well. If you make it mandatory or read only, that will be applicable to the table attributes for this column as well, right? Now, if this was sample column was, I don't know, this was probably, this is a string field, right? So this is a string field, so you will have all those string properties here. If it is a date field, then you have to put the date time property. Whatever property is available, you can play with it. Updated by is a string field, so you can put that information, play with this property. There is one attribute that you see here is a dependent attribute. We will talk about this, what dependent attribute is. Dependent attribute is, let's assume that this updated by, this created by field is dependent on the updated by field. Or another example would be, if I go to the incident form, see, there
So
are two,
Rahul, just one question.
yeah.
That UI we have created for the user. So if that UI is for to edit the custom table record. So when we are facilitating the user to edit the custom table record, that's why we have created that UI, correct?
This UI, the form design,
Yeah.
the user will not be allowed to it. So I'm talking to, yeah, the user cannot do this. User can, uh, see, user has a limited functionality. They will have
Okay.
limited,
So admin will use it
right,
basically,
admin,
right? That.
yeah. Admin will
But
design the
then.
form, but then
Mm,
users will have some slight features to, show hide certain values on the form. Let me see.
okay.
So for example, if user does not want to see this assign to, then he can untick it and the assign to will go away, right?
Mm,
So the changes that the user does using this personalized form will be affected only to that user and not to other users. The changes that you do here on the form designer as an admin will be reflected to all users who are going to access this page.
correct. My question was like, why do we need to create that form? Let's say we have created our custom table right now, okay?
Mm.
And then when you wanted to edit something about some column or some column value, you have to edit it. It does automatically, ServiceNow allow you to edit that column value or columns, right?
Mhm.
So why we are creating the UI?
This UI, this UI we are creating
Yeah.
because we want to show some form like this. For example, this is a form for the incident table. I created an incident table,
Okay.
but how do I make our users insert data into the incident table? You are not going to expose the list of records to the table, to the user. You are not going to expose this to the user where the user can go ahead and hit this new button to insert a new record, right? Then somehow you have to create a UI for the user where the user can go ahead and input the values to these fields that you have created, and then get the incident created
Okay.
into the database. Make sense?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Right? So
Yeah,
for
I always confuse what is available for a user, and then what we see as a user and what we should see as admin. Okay.
right. So we'll create a UI. Let's go back. I'll go to a custom application that I have. I'm
Because I,
going
you know, I wanted to see actually how, for any company, how ServiceNow has configured for user and what they actually see, what they can do it. That I wanted to see.
Yeah, we'll see that as well. We'll see everything that you're talking about. So see this. There is a table that I created for this sample application, which is known as the marketing event application. And the table that I'm talking to you about is the marketing event table. Right? So if
Okay.
I go to, I'll first go to the tables. You go into the marketing event table. I'm going to edit this table. Now you see various information here. The label of the table is marketing event. The name of the table is X underscore 25488 and followed by the marketing event, etc. The application scope has is marketing events application. It is not global. It is not any other application. It's marketing event application. Right. Now I have certain fields into this table. There is no extended table. I have certain fields in this table, and the team fields that I have are budget, city, end date, name, number of attendees expected, number of attendees registered, sponsor, start date, end date, right, and all these field values, the 6 values that are created automatically. Now see the different types of the fields that I have. Budget is a currency type, city is a choice type, end date is a date type, name is a string type. There must be a reference type as well. No, on this form I do not have a reference type. SysID is a good type which comes by default. Start date is date type, right? So I have certain fields on the in this table, right? And using this table, I want to show a UI to the user using which the user will be able to register for the marketing events or look at the details of the marketing events that are available for the users. Now, as we talked about, we are not going to expose this table or the table UI to the user, so we have to create some UI for the user where the user can go ahead and find out the information, or see the UI itself and then input data into the UI, right? So that UI, so there are several ways of doing this, right? What you can do is, one way of doing is to bring that onto the self-service page, create a category and put that reference to that UI that we are talking about. For example, this marketing event link somewhere here. So the user clicks on this marketing event link and it directly opens up the UI and you do not even see the list of records on the marketing event table here, right? Hang on. See, this is what I'm talking about. I brought this link here, request marketing event, right? So from the marketing event application, I could click on this marketing events and then, as an administrator, I was allowed to see this list of records, but I do not want to show this list of records to my user. I want my user to land onto a page like this, where the user will click this link, like request marketing event, and it will directly open up a form for you. Probably that is a different link. Something like this, right? Now this gives you a UI for the user. User will go ahead and put the information like, and see the different controls. This is the date field. You have the date control coming in. Budget field, it is a currency type. So you can see that the different control that I have, specific control for currency, and the currencies identified are pound, dollar, yen, and uh, whatever that is, euro. Right, so you have this currency type, a different control here. You can put the budget here. Then you have this select box here for city, and if you remember, for city we chose city was a choice type, right? So you created a choice type, and this choice type has these data: New Delhi, Kansas City, Denver, Parker, London, San Jose, etc. So it's a different type of field here, contains different type of data. This is a different control, start date control. When you click on it, it opens up a calendar control for you and takes data from the calendar. Right? This one is a text field. You can put the text values in here. Right? If it has been a reference field, like I have a reference field on a different form, which is the attendees form. Let me open it. If it is a reference field, I am referencing to the marketing event here. So from the attendee form, I am trying to pull out the details from the marketing event table. So for that, I have kept this reference field here. I can click on this glass button, and it will open up records from the marketing event table. It will show me all the records from the marketing event table according to the qualification criteria I have set here. Right? So my qualification criteria gives me 20 marketing events displayed here on this form. So I can go ahead and pick any marketing event that I have created. For example, the test marketing event here. So this is a reference to the other table. Now, the idea of having this UI is to present every information that is required for the user to conduct the operation that he wants to conduct. Make sense? So you had the table, you created the UI, and now you are leveraging your user to use that UI to input details and save the record into the table. And if any task has to be created related to that detail that the user has filled in, a task record will also be created if required. Right? In that case, your coding, your instruction to this UI will be that as soon as the user submits this record, create a task into the task table and assign it to the proper group who will be working on that task.
Okay.
Can you correlate now? Why do we need this UI?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking like it's a kind of a data entry form for a user.
Right.
Um,
Not
uh,
just
which
data
will
entry,
update.
Anand. If you see, this is data retrieval as well. For example, this marketing event, you are retrieving data from another table, right? So it's a two-way connection that you are doing. You are not making records here in the marketing events right now. You are retrieving data from another table, right? So that's why it's a two-way form here. Another way, if you want to put some more components here and bring data from other tables and show it on the form, you can do that too. You can put your custom components here as well and bring data from the tables and display it on the form, right? So any interactive form that you design in .NET or in Java or any other form, you can do that too here, and you can create the components of your choice. You can create your own custom components as well. You can put your HTML tags as well in place. You can put your JavaScript HTML validation as well here in the place, and you can customize the look and feel of this form. You can make it a proper form as you do in any programming language.
Okay, okay. Yep.
Okay.
And then where, as an admin, where we can find this form, under which category or under which module we can find this form. So
So
as an individual form, let's say
that you have
under.
to decide. Um, so if I go back, and while we were creating tables, we chose or we left in the sample table. If I go here, if I do edit table, I had this option of add module, right? Which we did not choose,
Mhm.
right? So if we are
Right.
if we are not choosing the module where we want to add this to, we are actually not creating any module where we can see this information, right? So this is just a table
Yeah.
that we
That,
created. So
right.
while
That
creating
is
this,
for
yeah,
the table.
right, that is the for
That
table.
is for the
Hmm,
table.
hmm,
But when we design a form for that
hmm,
particular table,
hmm,
if I wanted to access that individual form
hmm,
from the search where you are searching tables dot list and all that.
hmm.
So I wanted to search that form. So how we can search? It's under UI pages.
No, that see, there can be again there is different options available for you. UI pages is one, but this is not UI page we are talking about. We are talking about applications. So this is the next topic of discussion that we'll have. Once we are done with tables, we'll move to applications where we will create applications. So all these heads that you see in the left pane here, self-service, demand, guided setup, marketing event, all
Mm,
these are applications we talked about it, right? And when you
mm.
expand these applications, you get to see all the modules contained into this application, right? Now, if you want to see that UI, you have to refer to the application that we have created for that UI. You created that application and then you associated those modules to this application, and these modules are nothing but the reference to the tables that we created, right?
Oh, I
Attendees is
see. Okay. Mm,
attendees is a table. So if you click on this, it will open up the attendees table for you. But then if you are associating a UI for it, you will see that attendee
mm,
UI, right? Equipment
mm,
request
mm,
is a table. When you open it, it
mm.
will show you the UI for the table that you created for the equipment request, right? If I if I configure this form designer for, if I do configuration for this form, equipment request, if I right click and do form design, it opens up this form for me and it presents to me all the fields that is available on that table straight from this table or from the extended table. It will present to me all these field values here. I can drag drop, use it, and then save it and go back and see the changes reflected on
Okay.
the form. Right now I'm unable to do that because I am into the global scope, so I'm going to change it to marketing events application scope. Now I go back to the form designer, refresh it. Now it will be enabled for me. I have all these fields available here. For example, let's assume that from the available fields, I do not have approval field here, right? I only have these 6 fields. Now I want to bring this approval field here on the form. So I'm going to save it, right? Now, after saving, if I reload this form, I'll see this additional component coming in, which I included into the form design. So this is the approval field that brings me 4 stages, 4 values here, not yet requested, requested, approved or rejected. That comes from the table, that comes from the task table, which was inherited by this equipment request table, right? So all the fields available into the table, either from the custom table that you created or from the extended table that you have, you can bring all those fields onto the form and then show that onto the form itself to the user. The user can use it and then make use of it. I mean, create records into table according to the available field values available on the form.
Okay. So when we create a marketing event as an application, under that application, each module represents one table or maybe multiple table.
Yes, yes. Let me quickly remove this one and save it. And now I'll quickly jump onto applications. And within the system applications, you will see this studio coming in. So this studio will come into the picture, which is the integrated development environment for ServiceNow development. Right now, when I go into the applications, I can see there are two applications available. One is fiscal calendar, another one is the marketing events application. If I hit on this link, marketing events application link, I'll get to see the properties or attribute associated to this table and see how this application is not table application and see how this application has been organized or created, what sorts of information it contains. Right? I clicked on this link, I'll see the properties of it. I can see that this is the version 1.0.0 of the marketing event application, the scope of the application. So we'll talk about this application scoping. So the scope of application created is this. JavaScript mode enabled is these. Runtime access tracking is tracking. These are the property values it has taken. And then if I scroll down, it also says that there is no user role associated to this application right now. You can go ahead and choose user role which is required to use this application. So right now I have not associated any user role to it. If I scroll down, it shows me application files. So the number of times this application has been updated or the application files, the number of application files have been created for this application are all stored here. So it shows me these are the application files that were created. So you have this information. So this is again record keeping information that ServiceNow keeps with it. Dependencies, it shows me that there are two dependencies on this application. One is system import set, which might be importing data from some source which is required for this application. So there is one dependency from system import set. Another one dependency is task table schema. So there is one dependency that might be dependent on the task table, which is importing certain data from the task table or getting data into the task table, which is reflected in both the tables in the application and the task table. So there could be two dependencies that we're talking about. It shows me the cross scope privileges, the different type of privileges that we have. It is somehow showing me that this is using the REST message version 2 API. I am exposing the application's data using a web service or something, right? We'll talk about it. Other properties that I see is design access. We do not have any record about it. We will talk about it later when we create these applications. So this gives me some information about the application that was created already, right? These are the links. We will see what these links are in two other sessions when we start working on this application. Now this was one information that we retrieved. Now if I hit on this edit, it will open up the studio for me and will show you all the files or all the components, ServiceNow components, which are included into this application, right? So if you go in here, so these are the top, high level activities that you will do when you create any application in any programming language, right? You do data modeling, you do forms and UI, you do server development where you can write your business logic, etc. Then you provide access control, you do some navigation, right, where to jump from where. Then you do some reporting, right? You create reporting modules, etc. And then you have the integration part where you want to interface it with any third-party application or any other product, right? So ServiceNow has gathered these top level of activities that we do on any application, and these top heads that we see here contain all those kind of information which will be required for application building in ServiceNow. For example, if we expand this data model, it will contain information about the different tables which are associated to this application, right? So data modeling, I can see the different tables that I have for marketing event application, right? The table is attendees table, one table is attendees table, so I can go ahead and see the table here that contains all the information about the attendees table, the type of columns which are available here, the number of columns available here, the properties that it contains, the attributes that it contains, etc. All this information will come here, and it is associated to the marketing event application. That's why we are seeing it under the head of marketing event application here, right? Likewise, another table we have is equipment request. that contains information about the equipment request form that we had here. Equipment request form. So if you open this form, it gets you all the information about the equipment request. Whatever equipment request the hypothetical business scenario, business requirement is, we'll talk about what this equipment request table is and what this marketing event application is. But for example, here we can see that the equipment request form contains type, cost, needed until, needed form, marketing event, and number. And you can see all these fields will be available here. This is extending the task table so it has more fields. I'll go to the last record and you can see the cost, marketing event, needed from, needed until, and type. All these fields available here, right? So there is a direct relation with this UI and this table that you have created here within the application. Another table that we have is the marketing add attendees, where you are adding information about the attendees who are going to register for this marketing event. Again, a hypothetical scenario where you want to create certain user records using a form, which is the attendees form. Right? You can see here the first name, last name, email, and marketing event. If you scroll down, this is extending some import set row to some import set. So you can see that email, first name, last name, and marketing event, the 4 fields that come onto this UI are available into this add attendees table, right? Likewise, you have the marketing event table that contains information about all those marketing events. So to summarize, there are tables created. There is one application created, first of all, marketing event application, and within the application you created these 3-4 tables. One of these, a couple of these tables are useless because these are test tables or something, the XLS one. So you can ignore this one. Now, so you created this application, marketing event application, and within this application you have different modules. These modules are in fact different tables that you have created within the data modeling section of the application here. These tables, using these tables, you created a form or a layout using the design form. When you click on design form, the design UI for the form designer actually opens up, and you get the ability to design the form according to your need. You design the form and then you show it on the within the application as a module here, right? It is taking some time to open it. So this is one part of it. So if we understand how to create tables, so
Yes,
yeah, so we created individual tables yesterday. Now from the application perspective, when we create applications, we should start creating application first and then come into the studio and start creating the data modeling elements, which is tables here, and then start designing the forms. And then after you are done with designing the form, you'll go to different form components and then try to find out different form components and then design the form, put the UI validation, put the business rules, put whatever business logic that you want to put on the form itself. Make sense?
Yeah, okay then.
All right.
And now data in tables, whatever the columns is like something like array of values. Its choice is one thing. I mean, if the data type like I want to store one too many, like hence we use array list like that.
Can you clarify your question, please, Kumaran?
Yeah, for example, there will be like column label type there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Column label type.
Right.
In that, I can able to use array of values like type where we have to map the other table of values also. That will be like one to many. Right.
I'm afraid I don't understand your question. Are you talking about referencing other tables?
Oh yes, yes. One to many table. One table contains many records like that.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
available here?
Okay, you are talking about references, so hang on. I'll go back to this home. For example, let me think. For example, I want to create a user column here, and I want to, and we know that the user field, a user table that we have within ServiceNow is sys user, right? So sys user is the table where we have all the user records stored into ServiceNow, and on this sample table you want to create a field that is referencing all the records from the user table and will show you all the list of users here, and you can pick one record from there. Will that be your business case, Kumaran?
Oh yes, 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 yes.
Right. So for that I created a user column here, and within the type I am going to choose reference as a type, meaning I am going to reference another table, right? So I choose type as reference, and then when I choose type as reference, I have to fill in this value of reference as well. So I'll double click on it and then go into here and pick the table which is user, and I'm going to pick the table name sys underscore user, and I'm saving it. So now what it does for you is it is giving you a reference to the sys user table where you can see all the records from the sys user table onto this form and pick whatever user you want to choose. This is exactly what we did when we were into the marketing event application and we were onto the attendees form. If you see this form, attendees form, we have the first name which is a string, last name again a string, email which is a string field, but the marketing event, if you open up, this is opening up a reference to the marketing event table. You get to see the multiple records from the marketing event table. You choose one record from it and then you can save it. So this marketing
Yeah.
event component that we have onto the attendee form or attendee table, that is a reference field. So I'm going to attendees table now, and now I'll go and edit this table. If I scroll down and go to that marketing event record, see here, this marketing event that I am seeing is a reference to the marketing event table. This is the label that I created on the form. This marketing event label that you see, this one is the label,
Right.
marketing event label, right? And then
Yes.
I am putting a reference type to it, so which will give me this hourglass button, which will open up this pop-up window. And the reference that I am putting is the marketing event table itself. So there is a table into the ServiceNow, my instance, which is known as marketing event. So when I click on this hourglass, I open this pop-up and show records from the marketing event table. So all the records from the marketing event table which qualify my qualification criteria are shown here on this marketing event. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Now if I go to the attendees form, or let's go to marketing event, it has more fields. If I go to this marketing event form, as an administrator, you have other capabilities available as well. For example, if I want to change this field name, the name field that you see here, if I want to change this label, I can change it right from here as well. If I right click on this label, I get to see this contextual menu, which is very important as an administrator. As an administrator, you can get this contextual menu. As a user, you might not get this contextual menu, or if you get it, you will have certain less values. You will not get this configuration values, etc. Neither the watch name. Now I right click on it and I do configure label. When I do configure label, an interface will open up where I can change the label name. And I save it. When I save it, see the change has reflected here. It says input the marketing event name. Right? So using the contextual menu here, I can do certain changes to the form. I can play with the dictionary, configure dictionary. When I do configure dictionary, the changes that I do to this column will actually be reflected into the sys_dictionary table. Right? And I can put certain default value, or I can put certain more attributes to this this column that I can have that I have right now, the input marketing event name column, this field. So I can add certain more attributes to this field, and the information that I save here will go and be saved into the sys_dictionary table. Right? So you can configure that too here. Um, if you want to get the name of this table, because programmatically you are not going to access this field using this label that you have here. So programmatically you have to use the field name. So if you have to know what the field name of this field is, you can do right click and see within show. So you have show name. So it means that within the single quotes the name that you see here is actually the label name, the name of the label that you should be using programmatically. Start date is named as start_date. End date is named as end_date. Sponsor is named as sponsor. So stuffs like that. So if you want to configure the start date, if you want to play with it, change something, change the label, change the dictionary, change the styles, etc., you can configure it using this contextual menu. Right? Then there is another set of contextual menu that you see when you right click on this gray bar on the top of the form. If you right click here, you see this information, this contextual menu containing all these menu items. Reload form, copy sys_id. If you do copy sys_id, it will copy the unique ID that is associated to this record on the form. Copy URL, if you copy URL, it will create a unique URL for the interface that you have opened right now. So it will open up that interface and will show you that. Right now there is no record associated on this form because we have not saved it. So we do not have the sys_id and we do not have that URL here. That's why it is saying no record found. Export, if you want to export data from this form, whatever data or information that you have on this form, if you want to export in form of PDF or PDF landscape or portrait or XML, you can export using this one, right? If you toggle template bar, a template bar will be coming up down the page, which you can use to create a template of some kind, a template of a page or application. We will talk about it later. So you can create, you can toggle template bar on and off using this. And then you have a set of configuration items available for you using this configure cascading menu, where you can go ahead and configure form design. You can do configuration for form layout, related list, tables that you have created, business rule, client script, UI policies, data policies, UI action, and dictionary item. So all these items will be related to the form that you have created, and you get all these configuration options using this contextual menu. When you click on the gray bar, when you right click on the gray bar, you get this menu option available. Okay. We will look into some more contextual items later, maybe tomorrow. We'll start creating a custom application and see, whatever we saw into the studio, we'll start doing it. We'll start creating the application, look into the data modeling, form UI, and then we'll start doing the server development, looking into the business rules, etc. Then, basically follow this path. We'll.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I have to understand uh, what is the difference between form UI. When you say form UI and the data for the data model, for each data model, we for each table we have created that UI for the user, right?
Mm-hmm,
For marketing under marketing event.
mm-hmm.
So when you say when you are creating a forms, um, uh, so what is the difference between that? So the one module which we have created for putting a marketing event data and the form you are creating. So what those two different UI means? Because those two UIs are anyway you are entering the data and it is going into the one table or some another table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So both solves the same purpose, right?
You will have to explain it one more time, the question.
Okay. So now we have, let's say, we have marketing event is a one table, okay?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And for that, we have created a module for a user. If you go back to that
mm-hmm,
another instance
mm-hmm,
where we have created a one module where user can where user can actually enter the marketing events data,
mm-hmm,
okay, in
mm-hmm,
that form, correct, that
mm-hmm,
form, right? Now this form, this particular form,
mm-hmm.
and there are forms under form and UI,
Okay.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the basic difference between this form
There is no
and the
difference.
forms?
This is just a classification. See, right from the table UI, the table screen that we have here, we had these quick links to design form. If I do design form, it will open up the form in the form designer, which is available in this section. So this is basically a quick link for you that gives you
Mhm.
easily accessible items that right from the table that you have created, you can start designing the form. You design the form right from here, or you go to the form designer, pick the form table
Mhm.
that you want to choose, and then
Okay,
design the
okay.
form accordingly, right?
You
So
know what? We will edit your marketing events application in the design in this editor itself. So we'll see what are the different component you created. Correct.
right, right, right.
Okay.
So see, one thing that you will see quite often in ServiceNow is that there are different ways to do the same thing, and there are different options available to do the same thing. Right? Sometimes it confuses why we have this thing here and this thing here. So is there any difference? Sometimes it gets confusing, but there are a lot more quick links available that looks like it is a different thing, but these are similar. So if you do form design from the table interface here, you can do that too. If you do the design form, it will open up the same interface that you have here. The same interface, it will be opened that you have into the forms and UI.
Okay. I see.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay. All right.
All right. Kumaran, you have any question?
No, right now I don't have any questions.
I
All
think
right.
just one thing, Kumaran, are you joining by computer because your voice was very vague? I do not